Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Bridging the Gap. Thank you for being here and thank you for listening in. Today, I am going to continue the conversation we had on toxins and allergic things in our environment. It was a series. We worked on three different things, so two different things we covered so far. And I'm going to start with the third one. Well, first, I would like to ask you to like, subscribe, and share here on Rumble, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you're watching from. And I'm happy to have you here. And please share with your friends, okay? All right, let's get started with this presentation. So last time we were talking about environmental toxins and health harms, right? We covered number one, which is deodorant, cosmetics, self-care products. The second one was Wi-Fi, um, radio frequencies, EMF pollution. And today we're going to cover synthetic fiber and clothing. Just clothing, is your clothing toxic? And I'm going to show you what I found. Here what I'm going to talk about synthetic fibers, and I actually learned a lot, not just about synthetic fibers, but about what we think is natural fibers and how they impact. So microplastics are in synthetic fiber. A lot of microplastics in nylon, um, spandex. As you see, he's holding up spandex here, and guess what? It's in the spandex. That you need some plastic to make it stretchable. They create when you breathe in the chemicals that were used, it causes inhalation problems, skin absorption, inflammation. You'll see what I got today, a lot more things. The fabric usually has poor breathability as it claims to wick moisture. It disrupts the microbiome. It gives causes irritation and allergies. And some of the papers that I looked at were um, Broadhead, that was the author, Synthetics, who worsen atopic dermatitis versus natural fibers. Choi, and the paper was Higher Microfiber Shedding from Synthetics, and Pinto, Toxic Chemical Hormonal Disruptions and Respiratory Gut Issues. And I'm going to tell you that this paper, and I'm going to read most of it, honestly, because I was blown away by what I was reading today and looking into it. And I had done some research on this, but I didn't realize. So I'm going to go straight to the third paper. And some of it I'm just going to read to you straight from there because of how much we just don't know. And we're unaware of what's happening in the world and the products that we're using. So here in this paper, they talk about everything. I don't know how else to stress this to you. So they talk about textile toxicity, and it remains significant and underexplored, so nobody understands about it. And the hidden pollution and resource depletion, and it harbors a hidden threat. There's hazardous chemicals embedded within the fabrics, dyes containing heavy metals, antimicrobial agents that foster bacterial resistance, and synthetic fibers that release microplastics, as I said. Now it says how chemicals in the textile industry, textiles contribute to chronic skin conditions, hormonal disruptions, and even carcinogenic risk. And look at proliferation of bacteria in synthetic garments, leading to dermatological infections and rapid fabric degradation. Okay. Um, Basically, we should look at safer textile technology, sustainable material, and transparent production practices. And so we can have healthier lifestyles and environmental sustainability. This is what this paper will cover. So let's just start with the introduction of what It says The Invisible Threat in Fashion. And this title is about fast fashion. And that's what's happening in the world today, fast fashion. Okay. The fashion industry is one of the most environmentally damaging sectors globally, contributing significantly to pollution through multi channels, including water contamination, carbon emissions, and textile waste. Among the most severe environmental impacts, the textile production is responsible for approximately 20% of global clean water pollution due to dyeing and finishing products processes, and contributes to substantially to global water waste pollution. Did you know that? Additionally, the industry accounts for 35% of oceanic primary microplastics. That's a lot, equivalent to approximately 190,000 tons annually. Fashion production is also a major contributor to greenhouse gas emissions, responsible for between 8% and 10% of global CO2 emissions. Some of this is like crazy. The emissions for textiles manufacturing are projected to increase by 60% by 2030. That's a lot. 2030 is not far away. We're in 2026, 4 years from now. The industry generates an estimated 92 million tons of textile waste per year. And it's expected to rise to 134 million tons annually by 2030. The use of hazardous chemicals in a fast fashion production accounts for a quarter of the world's toxic chemical consumption. Okay. So the first thing is the environmental damage is directly linked to fast fashion business model. Mass production clothing distributed on a global scale. This prioritizes, of course, speed and low prices, right? Promoting short-term uses and disposability. You just use it. When you're tired of it, throw it away. Get rid of it. So there's a lot of ecological consequences for fast fashion. Human health remains largely overlooked in the fashion industry. Okay, now I'm going to read this entire paragraph because of how important this is. The production of a single garment may involve cotton cultivation in China, India, or Pakistan, the production of wood-based fibers in Brazil or Russia, the manufacturing of synthetic fibers in the United States, Southeast Asia, or the Middle East. The process continues through yarn production in China or India, textile manufacturing in Turkey or South Korea, garment assembly in Bangladesh or Vietnam, and finally, retail distribution in Europe or the United States. At the end of its life cycle, the garment often ends up in landfills or secondhand markets across both developing and developed regions, including Africa, Latin America, Europe, and North America. Okay? This long, complex supply chain makes it exceedingly difficult to track and monitor the full scope of environmental and health impacts at every stage, right? I mean, we don't even realize where our groceries come from. We don't know. It's the same issue here. You know, food, God knows where they made it, what process they did. But at least if we're eating whole foods, we know what we're putting in our body, right? With fashion industry, you think you're wearing clothes, and clothes are not toxic. But look what I'm going to tell you. Okay, so the fashion industry is concealing the chemical intensive processes used in textile production. Tracing the supply chain becomes increasingly challenging, further distancing consumer from realities of how their clothing is made. Transparency benefits corporations. This lack of transparency benefits corporations, reliant on outsourcing, impeding regulations, and limiting consumer awareness of environmental damage, exploitative labor practices, and toxic chemicals present in their garments, from raw material cultivation to finished products. Each stage exposes workers and consumers to harmful substances. We're just getting started. Addressing these hidden risks is essential as they pose serious health and environmental consequences that demand stronger regulatory oversight and public scrutiny. All right, ready, guys? Here it is. In the cotton industry, fields, laborers generally encounter pesticides and herbicides. The laborers often suffering from acute poisoning, chronic illnesses, and there's also long-term environmental harm. Factory workers who process textiles face similar dangers, handling synthetic dyes, formaldehyde, and flame retardants that can lead to respiratory issues, skin irritations, and even cancer. So even the people who are just processing your garments are going to have health issues. Okay. In the garment assembly plants, finishing treatments involving phthalates and nonylphenol NPEs, nonylphenol ethanol phthalates, further exposes worker to toxic substances. These chemicals do not disappear after production. They remain embedded in the fabric, posing ongoing health risks to consumers through skin contact. Now, just so you know, I'm reading the paper, so anything that's said here is not my information. It is from the author Pinto. And the paper here, 2025, Toxic Chemicals, Hormonal Disruption, Respiratory and Gut Issues. So, the lack of transparency benefits major fashion corporations, and they prioritize profit over worker safety and environmental sustainability. Sorry, I don't know what just happened right now. Sorry for that. While keeping consumers disconnected from the realities of production. Okay, so let's go to the production chain. All right, toxic chemicals permeate every stage of fabric production, from the moment a cotton seed is planted to the final touches on a garment. Okay. Azo dyes. So you have in the cultivation, basically, let me go through although cotton crops cover only 2.4% of the world's cultivated land, they account for 6% global pesticide use, more than any other crop, and that's cotton. So pesticides and synthetic dyes introduce hazardous substance. Azo dyes, a class of synthetic nitrogen-based dyes, are commonly used for textile coloring, while finishing treatments often include formaldehydes, which are NPEs, phthalates. Formaldehydes, NPEs, phthalates, alkanes, benzoate, benzophenone, biphenyl compounds, butylate, hydroxytoluene, and other chemicals. Some of these are just hard to spell, even though I know my chemistry and science, but these substances provide assets priorities such as wrinkle resistance and flame retardants, while those regarding production costs further accelerate the pace of fast fashion. So you want a wrinkle-free garment, you go to a store, you're like, oh, how convenient is this? Wrinkle-free, that's the best thing. I don't have to iron, I get to work fast or wherever I'm going. It looks good. It feels fine on my skin, at least I think so. And I go to use this and look what happens. All these chemicals are in these products. Okay, moving on. In May 2024, They found children's products from Shein contained dangerously high levels of toxic chemicals used to soften plastics. These included phthalates, which are known to cause hormonal disruptions, heart disease, fertility issues, and even cancer. And they were for children? One pair of shoes tested contaminated 428 times the permitted level of phthalates, the highest concentration ever recorded in tests done in Seoul, Korea. 3 handbags contain 153 times the legal limit. You know, guys, I am going to find a way to harvest my own cotton and make my own clothes. I don't know. What do you do? Where do you get clothes from? Whew. Then they say similar safety tests of products from Temu and AliExpress showed that 43% of the 90 children products examined include watches, clay sets, toys, and pencils contain hazardous substances. So Shein and these companies, it's not the first time that they've been caught in lawsuits and legal issues, but you gotta watch where you buy your things from. So going to the environmental health and consequences of global communities, let's talk about global communities. Many of these communities that where these products are made or processed, they bear the brunt of the environmental health hazards due to unregulated exposures of textile industry pollutions. So when these textiles are made in other countries, like I said, everything is made in different stages, so nobody knows what the next stage is. They only know their stage. And even in their stage, what happens is, as you'll see, use the example of Cambodia here, where fashion industry accounted for 88% of all industrial manufacturing, right? The textile production was responsible for an estimated 60% of national water pollution. Wow. And I guess they do that production part in Cambodia because the regulations are really easy for them to do this. Nobody's regulating. Nobody. So they can do whatever, dump all those chemicals in the water. And the only people that get harmed are the people that live there. Nobody else knows about it. But you're buying, you go look at the tag and go, wow, this is a nice shirt made from Cambodia. Must be good. So then you have, there's in West Africa and Latin America, where secondhand clothing is usually shipped from Europe, US, Canada, from common retailers for it is common for retailers to burn unsellable items to avoid waste disposal fees. This leads to severe air pollution, increasing the risk of respiratory and cardiovascular diseases among local population. And it's not just local. You know, there's wildfires going on in Canada right now. Okay? But you know what? They're coming over here to the US. So whenever something is pollutant and you're burning it and it goes into the air, it goes around the world. Maybe the local people get the brunt of it, but everybody experiences it. Nobody's free of this. So it says there's increased risk. So the burning garment waste also releases highly toxic substances, including digoxins, known carcinogens. So you get cancer from these things. Wow, what a surprise. Then we've got the clothing and the chemicals they have in there are chlorine, bleach, formaldehyde, ammonia, along with heavy metals, polyvinyl chlorine, also known as PVC, and resins used in dyeing and printing process. So you can understand these are all toxins that are environmentally, maybe in the water, maybe in the air. So far, that's what we got. Obviously in the product, because the product is being treated with these chemicals. Okay. Now we're going into the invisible compounds in clothing and textile, right? So here's what it says. Potential health risks through direct skin contact. inhalation of chemical residue, and even subsequent ingestion or inhalation of microfibers after being released into the environment. So if you do all that, all those chemicals that we just talked about, they're just going to go right into through your skin, cause health issues. You inhale the toxic compounds. I know there's off-gassing for everything. And I know that if I'm walking in a Walmart or a Target and there's everything there gives off something, I really can't stay too long. So I don't go to those stores because I get sick. I feel irritated. I feel like I'm getting an allergy. I can't breathe. I have to get out. So let's talk about the dyes and pigments. They have carcinogenic potential because they can degrade into aromatic amines. There are a whole bunch. Toluene. They're all carcinogens. And they are all stain final products. Long-term, low dose chemical exposure. And they go from the fabric to the skin. So you're going to get it in your skin and you're going to absorb it through your skin. Okay. So in addition, there are heavy metals such as lead, cadmium, mercury, frequently used to stabilize pigment and improve color fastness by preventing color degradation over time. Okay, so you want the color to stay in your fabric. Why not just put mercury in there? Yeah, lead. And this gets absorbed through your skin. Who's talking about that? I mean, they talked about lead in paint and then mercury in vaccines. But did you know it's in your clothing? While the dermal absorption of these metals depends on factors such as chemicals binding, manufacturing quality, and wear conditions, their documented presence in clothing remains a toxicological concern because there's poor fixation during dyeing and the fabric degrades over time. And once internalized, the heavy metals remain in and accumulate in organs and contribute to cognitive, renal, and developmental health effects over time. That's it? Okay, let's talk about hydrophobic and stain-resistant treatment that they do. Water repellents and stain resistant. Everybody worries. Like, of course, my daughter went and got a white shirt and it got stained. She doesn't want a white shirt that's stained. She gets white shirts all the time and they get stained. And what do you do? So everybody wants a stain-free shirt and water resistant because you don't want to be outside and be sweating and have your sweat all soaked up by the clothes you wear. Okay, so those shirts are made of PFAs, which will stay in the environment and human body. They're forever chemicals. PFAs are forever chemicals. And prolonged exposure to the immune system, prolonged exposure, it causes a problem with immune system suppression, hormonal disruption, damages organs such as kidneys and liver, and has an increased cancer risk. Wow, did you know that? PFAs can remain embedded in fabric and can be released into the air or absorbed through the skin. So it's not just you're wearing it and it's on your skin and you absorb it that way. No, you're going to breathe it in too. Great. Okay, so conservation and finishing. So this is beyond coloring and for functionality, chemical treatments to improve longevity and resistance, right? Which involves using formaldehyde in the process, which is applied to fabric to prevent wrinkles, shrinkage, and mildew growth. Formaldehyde is a known carcinogen and can cause skin irritation, respiratory issues, and allergic reactions, and may be associated with brain disorders. What the heck? Why not? Give me another brain disorder. No problem. I won't know. Not anymore. It's in the food. It's in the skincare and the deodorants and things we use. And Wi-Fi. Already have leaky gut, leaky brain. What's left? Another problematic chemical in the textiles is phthalates. They're known endocrine disruptors, and prolonged exposure has been associated with reproductive health issues and developmental disorders in children. So not only are they in adult clothing, they're in children's clothing. And so can you just imagine right from the start, why do these kids have ADD, ADHD, and autism? Forget the vaccines, forget food you eat. It has everything. Just put clothes on. Because in the beginning, you've got your baby and your baby's wearing clothing, right? You put diapers on, you put clothing on your baby, and you think you're only breastfeeding your baby and that should be healthy. But you don't know. The clothing itself has been produced with so many problems and so many pollutants and chemicals that are harmful already at such a young age, disrupting their neurology, disrupting their gut, disrupting their hormone cycle. And now why so many women? I was just having a conversation today where somebody was telling me about how many women now in the 30s are in perimenopause. That's crazy. We see people all the time, and the women all the time in the clinic wanting to have babies, and they're having infertility issues, going through IVFs. They're very sad and upset because they want to have children, but they can't, and don't know why they can't. These are hormone disruptors. They've probably been in their body, neurodisruptors, hormone disruptors, respiratory all these things, skin irritation, respiratory, allergic reactions, reproductive health problems. How can we be healthy in this world today when we don't pay attention to what's going on? Okay, so let's go to cultivation of the cotton. Right from the start with the cultivation of cotton is pesticides and insecticides, and they cause eye and skin irritation, neurological disorder, respiratory complication, and many other health issues. Even after processing and laundering, traces of these compounds remain in the fabric. So you think just because the people in another country were exposed to it because they harvested the cotton that you're fine. It is well established that individuals can be exposed to these substances through environmental sources. So environmental and by wearing these stuff. Who knows? How do you know if some of these things are not in your environment? You don't know. Honestly, I don't know what's going on in the farms around me. I do ask some of the farmers because I go there I want fresh organic vegetable. And I talk to the farmers. You should talk to the farmers. See what they do. So I was going to this one farm. They say they're organic, but then they spray with pesticides because they have to. So one of the stories is, and I'll tell you honestly, I was watching a video on Isha Foundation, and the guy brought up a farmer. Sadhguru brought up a farmer to have a conversation. Now, farming was in this guy's family for generations, 10 generations back, and he's still a farmer. And he says, you know what? You will not find insects, disease, bacteria growing, illness in a plant that's healthy. If a plant is grown on good, healthy, fertile soil, and that's one of the problems we have too. Nobody knows that a lot of all the things that everybody's, these industries, not everybody, but these industries have been doing to the soil for so long, our soil is no longer healthy on the whole planet. So good luck finding healthy, fertile soil. So since they have stripped the soil because of farming practices, of nutrients and things like that. Now he was explaining how when the plant grows and if it's healthy soil, seed grows, there will be, you won't find insects all over those plants. You won't find them eating the healthy fruit. Why do insects decompose things? Because it's unhealthy for human consumption or use. Unhealthy. So farmers who know, do not go and harvest fruit from the unhealthy plant that has insects all over it. If you have a healthy plant, there's fruit, it's healthy, and basically there's not that much insects all over it. I have to be honest, I've got fruit in my backyard. I have fruiting trees. And on those healthy fruiting trees, I don't spray anything. I don't do it. It's all organic. I got organic plants, and there's no insects on them. There isn't. There really isn't. Birds come to eat it. There is no bird or insect dying in my backyard from eating the fruit that I have. So the guy said that only unhealthy, ill plants and fruit, the insects will come to eat it up. So humans don't eat it because insects are decomposers. They decompose things that are bad and dead. Okay. Then he says, as for cows, what they do is they look at the farmer and they see what's going on with the farmer. So they'll go over and if they see 6 months before the farmer's going to get sick, so they go and graze in the land where the cure for the farmer is. Go eat that herb, come back to the farm area, right by the farmer's house, and they'll leave their fertile poop there, right? They will, and within 6 months' time, by the time the farmer needs the medicine will grow right there in front of the farmer to help the farmer. Anyway, this is what farmers know, and this is what happens naturally. But we're not doing anything naturally anymore, and there's mass production, and nobody knows what's going on. So let's talk about the and I was just talking about bacteria. But hang on one second. Let's finish talking about the nylon, the fabrics that are in here, the nylon and the polyester, and the microplastics in those materials, and the tiny microplastic fibers shed from these material, and they enter the water supply. And there's a spot in the ocean, and this I learned from Brightcore Nutrition lady doing a talk, and I didn't realize it's in the Pacific. There's a spot where all the microplastics, it's kind of like a microplastic cemetery. So all the microplastic collect and it gets stuck right in that one area. Because microplastics don't degrade. It's a forever substance. It stays. So if you have microplastics, you're consuming microplastics because you're using plastic bottles. All the fruits and vegetables you put in a plastic bag, already comes wrapped in plastic. If you have plastic containers and things at home, I've switched out a long time, everything to glass. Well, you're consuming, and it's still hard to not have plastics. Still very difficult to not be exposed to plastics or have any plastics in your home. So microplastics can be these tiny fibers, as I say, shed from the clothing that you have, the polyester or nylon. These microplastics have been detected in bloodstream samples, placental tissue, and even human lung and brain, raising concern about their potential genotoxic effects and their role in inflammation. Toxicity to your genes, right? Okay, so then let's go on to the bacteria. In addition to chemical contaminant, bacteria present another threat. So So there's bacteria that flourish in the synthetic fibers. Of course, if they're flourishing in the toxic synthetic fibers, these bacteria can't be good and healthy for you, because there's bad bacteria and there's good bacteria. Good bacteria live on your skin and give you a healthy microbiome on your skin, and they're good for you. But you'll see that a lot of these bacteria, because you're wearing these toxic clothing, the toxic clothing have killed the healthy bacteria, and you have unhealthy bacterial growth on your skin. Okay, so let's go on. Okay, so these synthetic fibers, such as polyester and nylon, which are frequently used in fast fashion, they provide favorable conditions that encourage bacterial adhesion and growth. Their hydrophobic properties facilitate them to absorb sebum, sweat, and other organic material, basically giving nutrient supply to the bacteria. And studies have shown that the polyester fabric has a higher rate of bacterial colonization compared to cotton. So these materials actually help the growth of bacteria, primarily due to the moisture wicking features and reduced breathability. Okay. Then there are inadequate washing practices, which often fail to eliminate these bacteria, right? Because nowadays what's happening is we're washing clothes at a lower temperature instead of higher, and we're not using the chemicals that would get rid of the bacteria. We're using enzyme detergents that use enzymatic methods instead of a little bit harsher detergent chemicals. And so what's happening, it's leaving the bacteria on there. The washing isn't enough. Less water, other detergents are not harsh enough. And then on top of that, the heat is not high enough to get rid of these bacteria, okay? So basically you got bacterial contamination in the clothing you're wearing. And it helps grow it because the material is great for bacterial growth. And the health impacts: odors, because bacteria causes odor, and you're wondering why you smell all the time. Skin irritation, increased risk of dermatological infections. The presence of bacteria in clothing is not merely a matter of hygiene, but also a health risk. The fabric can cause skin irritation, allergic reaction, and increased risk of dermatological infections, conditions like folliculitis and impetigo, while E. coli can lead to urinary tract infections and gastrointestinal issues from clothing. You can get GI problems and UTIs. That's crazy. Okay, so the antimicrobial treatments, which is a double-edged sword, I say. Okay, to address the concerns, manufacturers have incorporated antimicrobial treatments into fabrics, especially synthetics, with products like BioCoat. This coating either inhibit bacterial growth or kill microorganisms on contact. So that's a problem, because prolonged exposure to antimicrobial treated textiles fosters bacterial resistance. So basically, now you got bacteria in your body, right? Healthy bacteria. But then you have a product that you're putting on. You wear your favorite t-shirt, let's say, and your favorite t-shirt has a BioCoat on it. So it kills bacteria. So it's going to kill all your healthy bacteria. Now the bad bacteria is going to come live on your skin. But you're wearing BioCoat clothing, so don't worry. You're going to kill the bad bacteria too. But you know, there's a thing called bacterial resistance. And how's that happen? There will be one guy, this one bacterium that just refuses to die. And it's mutated. It's changed. It's now resistant to the BioCoat. It's killing all the other bacteria. So now it has all this room to grow. Why? Because you've killed all the other bacteria. There's plenty of nutrients all to itself. Now it makes more and more and more. Now you have bacterial resistance, and you're growing unhealthy bacteria in your body. It causes odors, skin issues, GI problems, UTI, you name it. Okay? That's what this means. So it says okay? Routine incorporation of such microbiocidal agents into clothing raises concerns about their impact on skin's microbiota and the possible adverse health effects, which I just explained to you. Because now imagine if you get MRSA, MRSA, hard to get rid of. Okay? So then they use these agents that help inhibit bacterial growth, like triclosans, toxic substance, silver nanoparticles, quaternary ammonium compounds, they reduce microbial contamination in fabric. Yeah, of course they do. However, these treatments have drawbacks. Widespread use in clothing linked to development of resistant bacterial strain. Like I said, triclosans has been shown to promote cross-resistance with antibiotic compounding, with global problems of antimicrobial resistance. Similar silver nanoparticles, though effective against broad-spectrum bacteria, may contribute to the emergence of silver-resistant microorganisms over time. Moreover, certain antimicrobials can pose health risks because the bacteria itself, or the antimicrobial itself, will cause problems because the compound triclosan and quaternary ammonium compounds have been associated with skin irritation, allergic reaction, and endocrine disruption. So don't worry, they will kill all bacteria, good and bad, and they'll disrupt everything you've got. They leach into your wastewater during laundering. They contaminate aquatic ecosystems and affect non-target organisms. So it affects all animals and plant life downstream and your water sources, what you drink later. The evidence of several studies. Oh, let's see, hold on. Let's just go to the next page. There's just so much to say in this one paper. This paper itself just blew my mind as to what's happening. I did not know it was this bad. The pathways through which these textile-related chemicals and microorganisms interact with skin, lungs, and organs reveal intimate clothing can affect health, often in ways that remain invisible to the consumer. Awareness of these risks increases. So does urgency for manufacturers and policymakers to adopt safer production methods. Okay, so this is important. Skin organism, pathway to exposure and health impact. Skin serves as a primary route of exposure to harmful chemical presence in textiles, including triclosans, azodyes, phenols, and microfibers. Triclosans and antimicrobial agents commonly used in textiles can absorb through the skin, have been linked to endocrine disruption and allergic reaction. Azodyes, their vibrant color can degrade into mutagenic AAs upon contact with sweat or bacteria, posing risk of systematic toxicity and carcinogenity. Phenols and parabens found in fabric treatment can penetrate skin and disrupt skin barrier, particularly in individuals with genetic predisposition, such as mutations in filaggrin gene. And textiles contribute significantly to release of VOCs, indoor environments, emitting substances such as formaldehydes and amides and other harmful chemicals. And they're very problematic in enclosed place. And formaldehydes are found in wrinkle-resistant fabrics, and it's respiratory irritant and a known carcinogen. VOCs are associated with adverse health effects, including headaches, dizziness, and potential long-term risk. Guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to look at my clothing. I'm going to start changing how I wear clothes, where I get my clothes. I've seen before are places with 100% organic cotton, but I'm not sure how they process everything. Okay, I'm not sure what this means. So I'm going to take a look and see what I can do. And if I find something, I'm going to tell you about it. Okay. By the way, I'm going to tell you about, take a commercial break for a minute and talk to you about Oil Divine. I met this woman, Lana. She is the owner of Oil Divine, wonderful lady. And she looks at everything just like we're doing here, all the toxic substances that are out there. And she created products, oil-based products for skincare that are healthy, non-toxic, 100%. She goes to the source and makes sure she knows how the product is made, how it's if there's a growth that's happening, how it's grown, how it's extracted, how it's produced, how it's packaged, everything. She looks at it all. And then she makes her own formula. She has her own line, Oil Divine. And she does a good job packaging too. Everything is perfect. Nothing is toxic. And I've used her products. Her vitamin C oil, I love that oil. It's great. I use it daily. Very easy to use. If something is complicated, I'm not going to do it. Okay, very easy to use. You don't need all those chemical products, the 5-step program for skincare. No, you just go and use that healthy bar soap that's organic and healthy, vegan, plant-based, non-toxic. Wash your face with the soap and apply the oil, and you're done. That's easy. And you know what? It leaves my skin so smooth and clear that it's better than even putting any foundation or powder on my skin. I don't even have a need for it anymore. Her lip oil, I love it. It's amazing. It is even the skin tone on my lips. I love it. Then she has age defying products. She has hair care, which helps hair grow because hair loss, because of all these chemicals and things we're exposed to. We really need something healthy. We don't want to absorb bad things. So why not go and buy something from Oil Divine that is non-toxic, healthy, exactly where she got all the stuff. She'll tell you if you ask. And it promotes health and healing in your body because oils hold light and oils promote health. Oil Divine in Newtown. Use promo code HYWBTG, bridging the gap. Got it? HYWBTG. And for a order of $50 or more, you will get a free gift every single time you use the promo code. Okay, so let's continue with dermatitis and chronic allergic reactions. Okay, textile-related dermatitis typically occurs at the site of intense contact with fabric in areas prone to sweat retention, such as your axillary folds, your underarms, your neck, waist, inner thighs, and gluteal folds, fat folds. They even did a study conducted in Israel. Common sensitizers include not only textile fibers themselves, but also chemical agents used in dyeing and finishing process. And there were so many dyes: paraphthalate, diamine. It was an important marker for textile-induced allergic contact dermatitis. That's what they found. And there was a lot of dermatitis from formaldehyde related, because it releases from the fabric. It creates irritation. And then the textiles and the detergents that have been used also cause atopic dermatitis. Mechanical dermatitis caused by rough fibers or tight-fitting clothing is also prevalent. And there's genetic predisposition always causes problems. Then we're moving on to endocrine disruption. Though we've we talk about this, but it goes on and on because it continues, you know. Um, Endocrine disruption chemicals are present. And you know what they are? You know these PFAs, phthalates, bisphenols, and it interferes with hormonal regulation, can remain in an environment, accumulate in human tissue, leading to long-term health conditions, and they can disrupt hormonal balance through multiple mechanisms. So if it relates to hormonal imbalance, that's everything in your body, you know, from fertility, infertility, all your changes going on through your body from birth onward. No, when women come in with thyroid problems, hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism, this is all related, and this can relate to your mental emotional well-being. You want to have any. You don't. How can you have mental emotional well-being when your hormone is disrupted? When you're feeling sick? When you're feeling irritated? When these things are affecting your brain? Okay. One primary pathway is receptor binding, where these endocrine disruptor chemicals either mimic or block the function of natural hormones such as estrogen, testosterone, thyroid hormones. Just like I said, some behave like estrogen. They're estrogen like hormones. Okay? And they behave like estrogen, but they block natural estrogen from binding to the estrogen sites. So it disrupts the pathway. And that's what it does. So then there's no need for your body to make the estrogen or the testosterone. And you're wondering why men are becoming like women and women are becoming like men. Make sense? Okay. Another mechanism involving enzyme interference, where these endocrine disruptors affect synthesis, metabolism, and or elimination of hormone, potentially disrupting the body's endocrine function. Some can induce epigenetic changes, modify gene expression, wow, all the way into gene expression, patterns related to hormonal pathways and potential consequences that may extend it to future generations. So it's not going to just impact you, it'll impact all your children down the line, your grandchildren, your great grandchildren, and even when you're not around, and they won't even know why. Okay? But we got to do something about this, because if we don't do it, who's going to do something? We got to make people aware of all these things going on in the world. Okay, so the accumulation, biochemical accumulation and long-term risk. Okay, let's talk about this. Non-noxious substances used in textile manufacturing treatment can progressively accumulate in the human body through repeat exposure. And well, I repeatedly wear the same clothing every day. Okay, not the same clothing, but you know what I mean. Same clothing that have all these chemicals in it, unknowingly. Because I actually tried to find organic cotton socks. That was impossible. Try to find organic scrubs. That was hard. Because scrubs, they don't want them to be cotton. They want it to be microplastics in the scrubs. That's crazy. You know, jerseys that children wear on the field playing sports, they're not organic, healthy chemicals. And they're running around and they're absorbing more in the skin during that time when they're outside playing than anything else. Okay, one of the um, okay, so let's talk about those noxious chemicals used in textile manufacturing treatment progressively accumulate in the human body through repeat exposure, contact, or indirectly after being released into the environment. One of the most concerning consequences of this process is increased risk of cancer, as chemicals like formaldehyde and AAs and azo-dyes are classified as carcinogen with exposure, chronic exposure linked to skin, bladder, and lung cancers. In addition, heavy metals such as lead, cadmium, and commonly used in dyes and pigments can accumulate in the nervous system, resulting in cognitive impairment. I've just talked about that. Developmental delays in children, and over time, neurodegenerative diseases in adults. So you wonder why dementia is high, right? Dementia, Alzheimer's. Where's this all coming from? Cancers at an early age. Cancer wasn't even a thing before. Now it's prevalent. Everybody's got it. Cognitive problems, cognitive impairment. What child doesn't have ADD, ADHD, autism, you name it, Asperger's? There's a name. There's many names for it to make you think it's more than one thing. It's all the same thing. It just presents differently from one human to another. That's it. And then it says, furthermore, persistent chemicals like PFAs can build up in vital organs such as liver and kidneys, causing, these are organs that help you eliminate toxins, okay? Causing long-term damage and alleviating the risk of chronic health conditions, elevating the risk of chronic health conditions. This is crazy. Oh, so anyway, who's benefiting? Not us. Who's getting sick? All of us. The people who are benefiting is the industry, and the fashion industry is huge. Everybody wants to see what's the latest fashion, you know, and everybody goes and rushes out to get the latest thing. Do you know where all these fashions industries, the big names, get all their product from? What are they using to produce their clothing? And you pay, some of them you pay hundreds and thousands, of dollars for the clothing. So now it says safe and viable alternatives. We need natural dyes, plant-based sources, nanofiltration membranes that have a high efficiency, over 90% of removing these endocrine disruptors, advanced techniques such as right first time dyes, where they do it once and they work well. Ozone finishing and nano bubbling technology with enzymatic decoloration, and it doesn't contaminate your water. Sustainable fibers, there are plenty. Polylactic acid, a biodegradable polymer. Cornstarch, Tencel, but I heard that Tencel may be, the processing may be toxic. So I don't know. There's lyocell, spider silk, protein-based fibers. There's a lot of options. Bamboo. There are a lot of healthy options out there. And you know, we need to look at how the supply chain is. You know, the problem is nothing is local anymore. I cannot go down and find where my clothes are being made, where and how they're being dyed, how they're being cut and washed. Everything is now manufactured large scale and bulk. Same thing with your food. Your food is not local. It is overseas somewhere. And you get it and you don't even know how old it is. How long has it been sitting in the freezer, refrigerator? What did they treat it with? So this is where at Healing Your Way, we try to teach you what's going on in your world that you're unaware of. And this really will open up my own eyes to say, this is an unhealthy process going on in our world. And I've got rid of a lot of things, you know. We eat whole foods in my house. We got rid of microwave I haven't had for a long time. Got rid of plastics in the kitchen cabinets. It's only glass, wood, metal. I use with EMFs and things like that. I have phone cases that block EMFs. I try to do everything possible. The clothing line, wow, this is something big, and it causes a lot of problems. Ozone, water My water is ozone filtered water. It's supposed to be the cleanest water you can get. So there's a lot to consider. A lot of what's making us sick and unhealthy these days, and a lot of things we can do to make change for ourselves and our children and for future generations. Well, thank you for listening. And I didn't even get to all the other articles, but I don't think it matters anymore because, oops, sorry, we're right here. I think this one right here article covered most of all this. It said everything. I read these other ones, and it says everything in here. Now, of course, the Broadhead one goes further into what's each individual chemical, but you saw generally what's going on. So healthier options: 100% cotton, hemp, linen, merino, wool, bamboo. There are other options. Transition, just donate, recycle. But when you do the donation and they tell you that it goes in the second hand and it goes to landfills. But if we start by using organic, healthy products first, and we can not feel bad and guilty that what we do with our clothing that we own, it's not going in the landfills, and even if they burn it, it's not going to do anything. Start slowly, okay? It's a big project. Start slowly. Start with underwear and bedding, right? And once you have that done, then start with everything else you have in your closet. Good luck. Thank you for listening. I hope this was helpful. It was very helpful for me, and I appreciate having to come here and talk about these things, because as I am going through things and talking about it with you, I'm learning along the way. And wish everybody make healthy choices for yourselves and everybody around you, and educate people. Share, like, and subscribe. Thank you for being here. And next week, we're going to be talking about furniture and carpet chemicals, okay? Let's just keep going. Thank you very much. Hang on with me. Thank you very much for listening in.